What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're gonna be breaking down the 6 best characters to OneTrick. OneTrick, you might be like, what the hell? Why are you telling people to OneTrick? Well, I'm gonna actually be talking about that as well. Should you OneTrick? How much should you be playing each hero? And what is the best way to improve? Let's break that all down in this video. So smash that like, subscribe, and go to the GameLeap website in the links down below for high quality, in-depth Overwatch guides that you won't find anywhere else about every agent in the entire game. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, I know that one-tricking is heavily controversial right off the bat, but I want you to hear me out before we move on because I might not be suggesting what you think. A lot of times when you think of one-tricks, you think about that Genji that like perma-feeds in the back and just never swaps off. Or you think about that Widowmaker that can't hit a single shot. Am I correct? And I know I'm correct because I've had those on my team and I'm like, just swap off, man. But you know, here's the thing that you really need to understand. You never consider the one-tricks that carry. You never consider the Widow that hits every shot. And you don't think about the Roadhog that flanks and gets a million kills. All you're thinking about are the people that perform poorly on the character they're picking. So at the end of the day, it's not really about the one trick, right? It's about getting value. That's all that matters. If you can perform your job and do it well, it doesn't matter if you want to play 5 characters, or if you want to play 2, or if you want to play 1, but you cannot have instances where you feed over and over and over again. So basically what I'm telling you is, well, yeah, I think it's perfectly fine for you to pick one character all the time, as long as you're consistently getting value out that character. If you ever get to a situation where the enemy is shutting you down, you're not able to find value, then yeah, you probably should switch off because you are being an active detriment to your team. Now that being said, in order for you to truly get good at a character, you actually have to learn how to perform and extract that value even in bad situations. When you don't have resources from your team, when you're up against counters, that is the way to become amazing at a character, right? So for instance, a Tracer, you could be a Tracer player that can play Tracer in the optimal scenario. You have a dive, the enemy has a Zen, they're very easy to dive onto, and you can get value that way. But you think that you're gonna be better than a Tracer that can fight Briggs and McCrees and up against other counters? No, you're never gonna be as good as that Tracer that goes up against things that are hard, but still triumphs and gets better and rises above that. And that's really what it takes to get truly amazing at a character. Now that being said, the problem is if you keep playing a character in a way that you're not getting any value in the game itself, you're throwing that game. So you kind of have to find a happy medium where you're really challenging yourself and you're not just swapping off the second you come up against resistance, but you're not playing your character so much that you basically are throwing it for the rest of your team. I would challenge you to make sure that you are not too flexible, someone who just swaps off automatically, but you're also not someone that will play a character till you lose the game and you got no kills. Now, that being said, I'm gonna talk about 6 characters in this video that I think are characters that, if you play correctly, they are the most useful in the most amount of situations. And honestly, if you play these characters extremely well, you could play them, especially in ranked, no matter the situation. It all comes down to your individual performance. So let's run it from the top, talking about character number 6. Let's talk about Hanzo. Now, I think ever since the game has been out, Hanzo has been one of those characters that has been probably one of the most one-tricked. I mean, you could just think about tons of them, like Ironades, you know, Argay, freaking Raxu, you know, he used to exist. I don't know where he went, but Hanzo's a character that can be extremely easy, honestly, to play at a certain level, but to go beyond that, it takes a lot of hours. You can really see how really crazy Hanzo players can force through value even when things should not be working out. I mean, they're consistently winning 1v1s against characters they really shouldn't be able to. They're finding value and impact in crazy scenarios. And I do think that Hanzo's one of those characters that can really reward you for becoming mechanically insane at him. Positionally insane and just learning Hanzo perfectly. If you can master Hanzo, I think he's useful in tons of situations, like 90+ situations. I think Hanzo is perfectly viable. He can frag, he can flank, he can just poke at the shields. There's so many different ways to play Hanzo. And I do think that there is such a high potential skill ceiling on Hanzo, especially for hitting some of those godly shots that you see all these one-tricks hit. And that's just something that you should think about when you're thinking about a character to really focus in on in main. Now, the next character that I gotta talk about, it's a pretty safe one. It's McCree. McCree is just versatile in almost every situation. He's good in almost every team composition. There's team compositions that he's a little bit worse in, but there's almost no scenario where McCree is just getting hard countered, right? McCree is kind of a neutral character. He has tools to deal with things that want to get on top of him. He loves playing in that mid-range. He's a character that you can find impact with in so many situations. I think that not only is McCree a really good character to just play a lot because you're going to get really competent at this character. When I got insanely good at McCree, I think I only played like McCree, and then if for some reason I was up against like double shielders in the double shield meta, I would swap to Hanzo for like the other 20% to help break shields. And that was the only two characters I played, and that got me to Grandmaster on one of my alt accounts. That's all I did, and that was a while ago. But you gotta understand that the more and more I played McCree in succession, the crazier and crazier shots I hit. All of a sudden, I was hitting criticals that I knew just freaking a month ago I would never be able to hit, and I was getting value in ways that I would have never been able to if I was like a freaking flex god playing 10 plus characters. Now, another benefit of McCree, I think, is you're just improving your aim, which is just, it has a lot of overlap, so you could play McCree and other characters if you want to later on, and of course you can be flexible if you need to be flexible, but I do think that McCree is good in a lot of different situations, and it's going to be pretty hard for you to get shut down to the point where you think you have to swap off. Now, the next character we got to talk about is Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball is just one of those characters, self-sufficient, can do his own thing, basically can play with every single tank. I mean, you don't really care necessarily what they're doing, but you can help them by creating pressure, creating point pressure, booping through the enemies. And I do know that some of you are going to get PTSD from me even suggesting this, because Wrecking Ball is probably one of the most one-tricked characters in the game, honestly, at this point. And it's because Wrecking Ball is independent. Like, you don't really need your team that much to get a lot of value on Wrecking Ball, and you can just go do your own thing without their help at all. Now, on top of that, there's a certain layer of actually mechanical mastery on Wrecking Ball that you can get to by playing him a lot. There's so many specific mechanic techs that you could utilize. For someone that truly masters Wrecking Ball, you can just absolutely dominate enemies. And you see this a lot when teams, even pro teams, will sometimes pick up Wrecking Ball specialists because the character is so hard to master, and you really need someone that is perfectly competent with so many different aspects of the character. And if you're like a flex god, like personally when I used to play tank all the time, I would play Wrecking Ball as a flexible character, and yeah, I could play Wrecking Ball okay, and I could do the job of Wrecking Ball, but if you compared me to people that played Wrecking Ball all the time, they could hard carry. I could do the job, but it was just a completely different animal for people that truly focused in on just completely mastering the character. Then the next character that we gotta talk about, this one might be a little controversial, but who cares? It's Lucio. I think Lucio is a character that you could play in every single rank in most situations, and you can still provide a giant amount of value to your team. I talk about his duality a lot, where you could play very peely with your team, enabling your tanks, and you can also get a little bit DPS Lucio, and that's a style that a lot of high-level Lucios use. And it's something that you can not only do on Lucio, but with Lucio, you get to analyze the battlefield a lot more. You get to see what goes on. You get to ult track, and you get to see how your little bit of value, you know, your little bit of damage, your little bit of speed, heals, or CC can be specifically surgically targeted on a battlefield to help out a whole bunch of different situations, turn a 1v1 into a 2v1 because you're adding your impact on that, and then just winning that one, then moving on to something else. I think Lucio is mained or one-tricked a lot because it's really apparent when you see like a decent Lucio and an amazing one. Like, the gap is huge, and Lucio has such a high ceiling, and he has such a high carry potential that I do think that he's just an amazing character for you to just get better on and play a lot. Now, moving on to the second best character to one-trick, another one that a lot of people are gonna get freaked out about, but it's true, it's Widowmaker. And you might be saying, what the heck? Why in the world are you telling people to one-trick Widowmaker? I have this freaking gold Widowmaker in my game that can't hit a damn shot. Now, first off, I do think that it's important for Widowmakers to develop their mechanical skill as quickly as possible. You know, do Widow v Widow, practice Triad free-for-all, practice your aim, because you want to be sure to get to that minimum value, right? You don't want to be playing a Widowmaker in a game and just straight up throwing it because you can't even hit a single shot. But I also know that there's a lot of players that have potential in Widowmaker that just never even get close to reaching that potential because they go into their game, they're like on Temple of Anubis, right on attack, they grapple up, they see another Widowmaker, or they miss their shot, they die, and they're like, oh man, I gotta swap off. Or they get roasted, like by their teammates, like, swap off a Widow, swap off a Widow. If you back down from a Widowmaker in gold, you're never gonna be able to beat a Widowmaker in plat, or diamond, or masters, The Widowmakers that truly get better are ones that practice and hone their mechanical skill, understand how to, you know, go up against their counter matchups. Like, what can you do to space against a ball? What can you do to fight against a Genji or a Tracer that's coming at you? How can you position yourself to make it hard for them to kill you? And then the ones that do not back away from challenges, whether it's other Widowmakers, whether it be maybe you died in one situation, but you are confident in your own skill and you constantly push yourself to do better. Now, this is gonna go back to my first point where I understand that there's a time when you need to swap off, right? If you are just getting farmed over and over and over again, you need to freaking swap off because you're absolutely throwing, but do not be so quick to just swap away. Honestly, I think that you should be trying to play Widowmaker a little bit more than everyone on your team is comfortable with. Not too much more, but just a little bit more. I one time had a Widowmaker only account, and I think I got it to like 3,800. That was as high as I got. I couldn't get more. I didn't really play that much on it after the fact, but when I was climbing through Diamond and climbing through Low Masters, I can't tell you how many times I would perform bad, like in one little instance, and people would just freaking flame me, like right off the get-go. And then they didn't say shit when I got a 3K later on. Like, it's just absolutely insane, and the only reason that I was ever able to hit my shots is because I constantly forced my Widowmaker to get value. Like, I was so hard on myself, and I made sure that if I didn't hit enough shots that game, I made sure to put in the work in the practice range. And I really knew that Widowmaker is one of those characters that if you have the aim behind her, especially in ranked, you can make her work. You can get value every game. You can carry every single game, and that is kind of what you're trying to strive for here. But I know it's a really important balance to get. I'm not telling you to freaking throw your games or anything like that, but it is important that you don't just hear one little bit of criticism or mess up one play and then swap off. Because then you're going to play Widowmaker, what, like 5% of the time? You're never going to get good at Widow. Then we go to the last character that I think is probably just the most one-trickable character in the entire game, and it's Tracer. Because Tracer is a character that can carry basically every single game and is good in most situations and ranked especially. Because of such a high skill ceiling on the character, it's a character that even if she's not perfectly optimal, you can make up that with skill. And I also think that Tracers really get better going up against bad situations and making it work anyways. On top of that, I think that Tracer is very unique, and it's kind of hard to practice some of the things on Tracer on other characters. Like, you could be an amazing McCree and a garbage Tracer. And I do think that trying to be creative, trying to think about why each and every engagement goes wrong is one of the best ways to improve. So for instance, if you go after a support and you barely don't kill them and then you die, you got to ask yourself, what are the different things that I could have done to actually win that? Could I have had a little bit better mechanical skill? Maybe I need to grind that a little bit more. Could I have set up the engagement with more blinks when I'm on top of that support? You gotta ask yourself these questions because ultimately, as Tracer, you need to learn how to slowly but surely play around a number of different situations. I mean, as Tracer, you are one of the most fragile characters in the game, but also one of the most lethal. You're kind of like a glass cannon, right? And it's one of those trial by fire things where I do think that if you play Tracer and you play her and you go up against a freaking McCree and you're like, ah, fuck, I can't play Tracer anymore, I'm swapping off. You're never gonna get good at Tracer. High-level Tracers do not swap off against McCrees. They body them. So basically, if you're taking anything from this video, I'm not telling you to one trick, but I'm also saying that most of you flex way too much and most of you swap off way too soon. And if you really want to improve at a character at an extremely fast rate and reach those pinnacles, sometimes you're gonna have to stay on them even in a bad situation, even when your teammates are a little bit uncomfortable with you not getting enough value, and just find a way to make it work anyways and work on trying to get impact no matter the situation on the characters of your choice. But go to the GameLeap website in the links down below for high quality in-depth events, guides, VOD reviews, tips, and tricks. We got so much Overwatch content that you just gotta go check it out right now down below. But thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video. I love your faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.